Hi everyone, I'm Laura McKenna and I'm very excited to share with you today some tips, some strategies, some specific steps for experiencing personal transformation. A little bit about me, I'm a West Point graduate. I commissioned as a military police officer, then branch transferred to aviation. I flew Blackhawks for a little bit, and then I moved on. I got my graduate degree in exercise science and physical education, and then I closed out my 13 years on active duty. My last duty station was teaching at West Point, and I taught in the Department of Physical Education. I'm now a business owner. I have a nutrition, mindset, and lifestyle business where I provide solutions in those areas: nutrition, wellness, habit transformation, mindset, lifestyle. And all of that is to share that I have a background in what I'm sharing with you today, and I'm really passionate about it. So this is something I'm really excited to share because it's truly an honor to be able to help someone along the path of their personal transformation. So you're here because you want to make a personal change, right? So why? Why change? Maybe you've identified that there's a gap between your current state or where you are right now and your future state or your vision for your life or just a goal that you want to achieve. So you may have a health and fitness goal, right? Maybe you want to get healthier, you want to lose some body fat. Maybe you're training for a specific event like an upcoming CrossFit competition or a Spartan race. So that's definitely awesome goals. And those are, some personal health and fitness goals that you may have. You may have a personal or relational goal, such as to stop complaining, to stop judging, maybe to be more tolerant or a more forgiving person in your relationships. Or maybe you have a financial goal, right? Maybe you want to be free of unsecured debt. Maybe you're saving for something in the future. You have travel plans, or you want to save for a future home purchase. Whatever that is, and whatever your goal is, these steps will apply to whatever type of goal that you're setting, and it scales. So you may have a small goal, you might have a big goal, and this will apply to really any type of goal that you've set in your life. So whatever change you've identified that you want to make, the process is going to be similar. So I'm going to walk you through 5 steps, and they are commitment, belief, goal setting, choice, and then the how of achieving your goal. So let's dive right in. Step 1, and there's a reason it's step 1. This is hands down the most important foundational step, and that's to take responsibility. No one is responsible for the outcome except you. And knowing that you are responsible for making this change is a foundational step to achieving it. Now, your circumstance, your experiences, they may not be your fault. Your limiting beliefs, they may not be your fault. Your conditioning, your programming, that may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And by taking responsibility, only then are you able to change what has happened to you, what you're overcoming, right? It starts with taking responsibility. So you have to commit to removing any concepts of being a victim, your thoughts, your actions, your language, how you speak to yourself, how you speak to others, how you describe your situation. If you're still edifying the struggle, then you have not taken responsibility for overcoming that struggle. So you really want to pay attention to that. You want to stop rationalizing. You want to stop blaming. You want to stop complaining. You want to commit to developing the mindset of someone who is responsible and takes action. So you want to also then replace with empowering commitment language. So what do I mean by that? So for our health goal, this is where I can't have that becomes I don't want that. Okay, so if there's something that you know is keeping you from being healthy, instead of saying, oh, I can't have that, no, I don't want that, because whatever that is not consistent with the goal that I'm trying to achieve. It's not aligned with the goal that I have set for myself. That's where for a financial goal, I can't afford that becomes I'm not going to purchase that because the purchase of that item is not aligned with my financial goals. So you have permission. You always have a choice. It's always on you. So it's not a question of, someone or something or even yourself saying you can't have it. No, you have permission. You are empowered to choose one thing over the other. So it's never, oh, well, so-and-so won't let me have that. My coach won't let me have that. No, you always have permission. You're choosing not to have that thing because it's not aligned with your goals. That's commitment language. That's the language of someone who is responsible. That's the language of power and choice. Stop saying, I need to get to the gym, and start only saying, I've committed to my workout. Okay. And then getting to your workout, right? Commit to it and then do it. Remove the I want to, I need to do this. I'm trying to do this. You can want something. You can need something. You can be trying to do something. That doesn't mean you're doing it. That's not commitment language. So taking responsibility means that you adopt the language of commitment, right? We'll have a Yoda moment, right? There is no try. You do or do not. That's commitment language. That's someone who is responsible for the outcome and has taken responsibility for their power to choose. That's the first step. Now, the next step, step 2, is to believe yourself capable of change. If you don't believe that you can make the change, you're not going to make the change, right? I mean, Henry Ford says, I'm going to mess this up, but if you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. Right? You have to start with a belief in your ability to make the change that you seek to make. Now, this will require that you commit to not just changing the behavior, but to changing your very identity, right? It's not about not behaving a certain way. It's not about, avoiding certain things. It's about becoming the person who achieves that goal. You're changing your personality. You're changing your mindset. You're changing your very identity. It's not just about the action. It's about becoming the person who takes or doesn't take the actions in alignment with what your goal is. You don't want to just do something different. You want to be someone different. It's about your identity. And if you don't do that, if you don't make that shift from doing something different to being someone different, whatever that you're looking to achieve will always be a struggle. And as long as it's a struggle, you're going to fail. So you want to make sure that you're transitioning not just what you're doing, but how you're thinking. And that starts with believing that you can do it. You want to become the person who does this thing, not someone who struggles with whatever it is. And when it's your identity, it's just what you do. Okay. So keep a thoughts journal, because that will give you a conscious awareness of what you do now and how you can become. It's a way to keep track of who you are now and how you can become that person who just does the thing that is your goal. So you want to keep a thoughts journal. Become consciously aware of your thoughts throughout the day and then record them, right? Keep that journal. Make a note of your limiting beliefs. Make a note of your disempowering thoughts and your empowering thoughts, right? Write those down too, because you want to emphasize those. You want to repeat those. You want to also make note of the thoughts that aren't aligned with your goal, okay? And then you're going to replace those with empowering thoughts, thoughts that are aligned with your goal and who you are becoming. So just what I just shared. If you have a financial goal, for example, you're not going to go out and say, oh, I can't afford that. That becomes, I'm choosing not to have that because having that right now is not aligned with my financial goals. That shifts your thinking. That's replacing a disempowering thought, I can't afford that, with an empowering thought, I choose not to purchase that because it's not in alignment with my goals. And so you want to identify, what are those limiting beliefs? What do you believe about yourself? What has been programmed? What have you been conditioned to think or believe, maybe from your upbringing, your family life, maybe from your experience in the military as a first responder? What are those conditioned thoughts that are now not in alignment with what you're looking to achieve? You have to first identify them. If you're not aware of them, you can't overcome them. So you want to make sure you identify them, keep a journal of them, and then actively replace them. Now, 2 notes of caution here. Do not criticize yourself. Really, really commit to not criticizing yourself. When you realize that when you're thinking in a way that is perhaps disempowering, or is not in alignment with your goals. Or maybe you hear yourself and you're like, oh, that's a victim mentality. Don't criticize yourself for that. Don't beat yourself up for it. That's not only counterproductive, but it will slow your process. Okay, so when you catch yourself thinking outside of alignment with your goal, simply observe yourself, almost like you're a scientist collecting data on you. Step outside your body. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, who's one of my favorite neuroscientists, and I highly recommend her program for kind of reprogramming your brain. She talks about our humanity and the fact that we are human beings. We have this ability to observe our consciousness, and that metacognition, that ability to observe our own thoughts and thought patterns is so powerful. So just observe like you're a scientist, like you're someone observing and taking data, and then take that data and replace. A second note of caution, don't try to change all your thoughts at once. Maybe throughout the day, you're like, oh my gosh, I actually had 24 disempowering thoughts in the last 30 minutes. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but you may get to the point where you're like, wow, this feels like too much. And then you become overwhelmed, and that's also really counterproductive. So focus on one thought. And this is where having that thought journal is so powerful, because when you're focusing on one thought at a time, you can really replace it very actively. But the thought journal is also powerful because it shows you your own pattern. It's like collecting data points where you can choose the thought that happens most often, or that you think most often, or that is the most powerfully limiting, the most powerfully disempowering. You can identify that by keeping a thought journal, and then that tells you which thought you want to go to work on and which thought you want to replace with an empowering thought. So don't try to change it all at once. And then once you have that one thought, spend several weeks there just focusing on replacing that one thought with an empowering thought for several weeks before you move on to another thought or thought pattern that you're reprogramming, that you've committed to reprogramming. As we move on to step 3, you want to set goals, right? And you're like, shouldn't have that been the first step? No. And here's why. Your mindset, your commitment, and your belief that you can make the change, those are more important steps than having clarity on what the goal is itself. So we've got to start with, we got to get your mind right? We got to have your head straight before we can then specify what our goal is. Now, I'm sure you've heard of SMART goal setting, where a goal is specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and within a timeline. I'm not against SMART goal setting, but I really prefer setting a goal that is 2 things. It just needs to be measurable, and it needs to be meaningful. Okay, so I'm going to start with meaningful because I think it's frankly the more important. You want to know why you want to change. Change can be a challenge. That doesn't mean that you edify how hard it is, right? Because that goes back to step 2. Oh, this is so hard. That's a disempowering, limiting belief. It's not hard when you choose that it's easy. When you decide that it's easy, when you decide that you're capable of it, then it's not hard. But it does take a process. It does take commitment. It does take all of those things. So when you experience those wall-kicking moments, those moments where you feel discouraged, or like you can't do it, you want to go back to why this is important to me. What does it mean? So earlier when I listed some examples of some goals that you may have set, why do you want to lose body fat? But, maybe it's because you've identified that being overweight and having a high percentage of body fat, especially if it's visceral fat, that fat that's around your belly, if you have a high percentage of that, maybe you've identified that you're now at risk, or you're experiencing disease. Maybe you're at risk for heart disease. Maybe, there's been some things going on in your health that you're like, I've got to make this change. But you've got to know why it's meaningful to you. Imagine what it will feel like when you've accomplished this goal. Imagine how good it will feel, and really visualize this. Why is it important to you? Who does it affect? When you achieve your goal, who does it impact in a positive way? How does it affect you? How does it affect the people that you care about? How does it impact on the second and third order, maybe even beyond the second and third order? Write down and get a really good sense of why it's important to you. That's really going to get you through when you get discouraged. So spend some time doing that. But you also want to make it measurable, right? You can't win at what you can't measure. That's just the truth. There's a reason there's a scoreboard in every game, because we've got to be able to measure our progress. We've got to be able to measure whether we've accomplished a goal. If there's no target, you're not going to hit it. But if there's a target, you're much more likely to actually hit it. So you want to make sure that your goal is, specific and measurable, but you want to break it down into those two things. And certainly, again, SMART goal setting is awesome. And, you can incorporate those concepts of what's meaningful and how do I measure what I've accomplished and what I've achieved within your goal setting. And you also want to have a kind of a bigger goal, more like a vision. And then you want to have your process goals that support how you're going to achieve kind of your bigger goals. So if your goal was to train for a CrossFit competition, then one of your process goals needs to be getting to the gym 3, 4, probably 5, 6 times a week. Your process goal should be RXing a workout consistently, that's the level that you train at. Your process goal should be moving up to the performance level. If you're a CrossFit box, has those different levels of training. Your process goal should be eating clean in a way that fuels your body, those sorts of things. So you want to focus on not just the outcome goal, but the process goals that are going to get you there. Step 4, choose. This is a very important step. Well, they're all very important steps, but this is where it becomes a 1 or a 0, a this or a that. You do or do not. And so this is kind of like the next step in the process of having the mindset of someone who achieves this goal. So I call this a choose exercise. Spend some time reflecting on not just what you want to achieve, not just what the outcome and the process is to get you to the outcome, but the traits and characteristics of the person who achieves the goal that you've set. Now that you've set it, now that you know what the processes are, what are the characteristics of somebody who achieves that goal? On a piece of paper in one column, write down these traits, characteristics. Maybe this person is disciplined. Maybe this is someone who has healthy habits. Maybe this is someone who is positive and joyful. Maybe this is someone who forgives. Those are all different characteristics and traits, but you can come up with any of them and make them relate, to your goal. Who is the person who achieves your goal, and what is that person like? On the other side, so on an opposite column, what are the characteristics of a person who does not achieve this goal? Maybe that person lacks discipline. Maybe that person is lazy. Maybe that person isn't committed. Maybe that person is still using victim language or victim thoughts, victim mindset. Write those down. What are the characteristics of the person who does not achieve the goal that you've set out for yourself? And then just kind of keep these lists and review them. And when you catch yourself being the person in the does not achieve the goal column, catch yourself and simply choose. It's literally that simple. It's this person or this person. It's a 1 or a 0. It's this or that. It's do or do not. So you want to just have that you want to have that clarity on it. You want to have it very clear who you are becoming and who you are no longer being, and have just absolute crystal clarity on that. And that will help you to really foster your vision and achieve your goals. I want you to also, though, consider not just, choosing which identity you want to live into, but also choose what you consume. And I don't just mean the food that you consume, although certainly that's probably, part of really any goal that we're going to set. Regardless of what type of goal, probably what we consume is going to be a contributing factor, or maybe one of our process goals. But I'm really talking about what you consume mentally, emotionally. What do you expose yourself to? So who influences you? Yeah, I'm talking about your friends. I'm talking about your group. Who influences you? If your group of friends, the people that you spend the most time with, we really do become the 10 people we spend the most time around, or who has the heaviest amount of influence on us. So who are those people? And are their attitudes, are their character, are their traits, their characteristics, are they aligned with your goals? And if they're not, do you want to be around those people? And that's where it's kind of under the choose category, because you either want your goal or you want that disempowering group of friends. And so that can be very challenging, because this next part we can cut out. But when it comes to people, that can be a little bit harder, but it's just as important, if not more so. You want to also choose what you expose yourself to. So what are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you reading? Do those things help you to reach your goal? Do those things help you to reprogram your mind and your thought patterns so that you're becoming this new identity of the person who achieves your goal? What are you listening to? What are you watching? How do you feel when you watch those things? Are those feelings that you're having, those thoughts you're experiencing, are they consistent with the person that achieves your goal or the person who does not achieve your goal? Listen, if you're serious about achieving a goal, you'll set the conditions. That's the bottom line. You'll set the conditions to achieve that goal. You'll create an environment in which that goal is possible. If you have a weight loss goal or a body fat loss goal, you're going to fill your pantry, you're going to fill your fridge with food that is good, clean fuel, because that creates the conditions for your success. You're going to do that all around. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I live in the Northeast in the United States. Maybe I want to grow a citrus tree or like a tropical plant, but the conditions here, I mean, I look outside right now, it's snowing. We've got about 5 inches of snow, maybe 4 inches of snow on the ground right now. Like, maybe I want to grow a tropical plant, and I have a goal to do that, to have a citrus tree, or a lime tree right outside, right off my porch. But the conditions are not conducive for a lime tree to grow here. So I either need to change that goal, or I need to change the environment. I need to move to a different place, or I need to set up a greenhouse somewhere where the environment is conducive. I've set the conditions for victory for that lime tree to grow. And it's no different when we set a goal. If you're serious about becoming that new identity, choose to surround yourself with only things that create that new person and achieve that goal that you've set for yourself. Choose to surround yourself only with that which is in alignment with your goal. And if it isn't in alignment, it goes. That's why decide, right? The root of side is to cut, to kill. When you decide, you've cut yourself off from any other outcome. Gone, okay? Now, I'm not suggesting well, my kids keep me from getting restful sleep, so off they go. That's not what I mean. Certainly there are certain relationships and certain things that you can't cut out of your environment. But as much as it's up to you, cut those things out that are not in alignment with your goals. All right, we're at step 5, which is choose an effective how. Okay, so you want to plug into a system. You're right here, Fire Team Whiskey. Right on, man. You're already committed to this. You've already plugged into a system, a structure, a plan that is going to help you to be successful. This is new to you, and it can be a challenge if you're trying to do it on your own. But you reduce how hard it is when you've got a structure, a program, a plan that you're actually following. You'll have instructions and a structure to follow. That's game changing, man. You got to choose a good how. Don't go it alone, okay? And that's part of plugging in to a structure or a program and being part of a group. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this concept of an accountability partner. See bullet number 1, right? If I'm responsible, then nobody else is going to hold me accountable. I'm going to hold myself accountable. What I am in favor of and what I do believe in are like encouragement partners, right? Even introverts. I'm an extrovert. I'm married to an introvert. Even introverts are social beings, right? We can accomplish so much more as a group as a team, when we have people who are on a similar path, right? It goes back to that group that we're surrounding ourselves with in the choose step just before this one. If you choose to surround yourself with like-minded success seekers who also have a growth mindset, who are on this path to success and goal achievement and becoming better, being better than you were yesterday, then that's just going to amplify your results and really propel you in the direction of your goal in a way that's aligned with your goal. It's a very powerful thing. So you want to be surrounded by a group of people who will uplift, encourage, empathize, and and maybe hold your feet to the fire a little bit. But again, it's not to hold you accountable, because step one, you're responsible, you're accountable, and you can do this. Okay, that's step two. So lastly, you're going to have to revisit these steps, all right? This is continuous. It's not like, all right, I did the 5 steps and now I'm good to go. I'm going to start rocking on my goal. That's not how it works, okay? You have to continuously commit. You have to recommit every day, sometimes every 30 seconds, to being this new you. That's what it's going to take. That's why taking responsibility is the number one and most important step. So I recommend you take a few minutes every day to check in on these steps and really reflect on them. So, as we go through the 5 steps, maybe you ask yourself, how am I doing with ditching the victim mentality? How am I doing with really being responsible for creating and becoming the person who achieves this goal that I've set? How am I doing with my thought patterns? Are my thought patterns aligned with my goals? And just, reflect on that. Ask yourself that. Maybe journal that. And then you want to go to, why do I really want this? Why is this important to me? Review what your goal is, but also review why it's meaningful to you. Then review, hey, am I setting the conditions for my success? Am I creating an environment? Or are there things that I need to cut out of my life or my environment because they're keeping me from the success that I seek? And then how am I doing adhering to the how? If I've plugged into a structure, if I've plugged into a program, am I actually following it? How could I follow it better? And you just want to check in with yourself. These 5 different steps, do it every day. Refresh your memory, really reflect, make a note of your progress, because honestly, those qualitative aspects are probably more important than the physical outcomes that you'll achieve, because you're being a person now, you're becoming a person. This is why we set goals in the first place. You set goals not for the goal itself, but to become the person who achieves goals, which means the next time you set a goal, you know how to do it. You know how to do it. And that's super powerful. So just, review these. Maybe it doesn't have to be these questions specifically, but by repeating the steps over time with consistency, you'll see your thoughts change, you'll see your behaviors change, you'll see your habits change, you'll see your identity change, and you'll have that outcome. That's where you begin to see true transformation in yourself, in your relationships, and you'll definitely see the change in your results.